Left of the box. A little while ago, I had a bit of a meltdown. It happened in relation to my videos, and that's why I haven't been posting any new videos in the past week, 2 weeks, because it kind of destroyed my confidence doing it, and it's taken me a while to kind of build that back up. So I want to share with you what happened with it in hopes that it will help you to better understand when you see it happen to somebody else. So I'll start with my analogy that I have, saying it's not about the spilt milk. And I've put this in a few videos before, but for all the new people, what that means is, let's say you're out at a restaurant and you accidentally, well, the person next to you accidentally spills the milk and they start freaking out, like just totally losing their mind. And you're looking at them and you're like, what? It's just a glass of milk. It's no big deal. Like, what is the problem? But what you aren't seeing is that earlier in the day, the person lost their car keys. Earlier, they had some stress. Their pet wasn't doing well. They're suffering from depression and are masking it. There's so many other things that are going wrong in that person's life. And then suddenly they spill the milk. And that is just the thing that kind of breaks the seal. It's just another thing to reinforce their own personal belief that nothing is ever going to get better, that everything is always going to go wrong, and they can't take it anymore. And so they start just losing their mind over a simple glass of spilt milk. But to anyone who isn't in their brain, they see that and it doesn't make any sense. And that's kind of what happened to me earlier. The thing that I kind of broke over was something super simple, nothing that was a big deal. But there were so many other things going on in the background that was just one thing too many. So what it was is I was looking back at the live stream I did with Jeff Wiggins. Please go check it out. And I was looking to make a clip of it from the little fun thing I like to do, quiz the Americans about Canadian issues or Canadian subjects and stuff of that sort. And I was going to make a fun little video out of it. But as I'm watching it, I realize, oh, I got that wrong. And then something else, and it's like, oh, right, that was wrong. And I was still fine. And then there was something else that was actually mentioned in the video that I thought I knew, but I didn't want to say anything. And it turns out I was right, so that was a bit frustrating. And then there was something else. And finally, something else that was wrong that just caused me to lose my mind. And the simple things are, like, at first I was just planning on making like a video where I would add in some commentary and make light of it until that last thing that I came across. And it really made me feel bad because here I am, part of my gimmick is being Canadian and I don't know these, like I got these Canadian things wrong. So how can I be trusted with other information if I can't even get this? And part of the frustrating thing is that I knew a lot of those answers. I just got them wrong in the moment. And the simple ones are when I asked Jeff what the capital of Canada was, and he first said Winnipeg, or is it Montreal? And I said, no, but they're both capitals of provinces. No, they're not. Winnipeg is, Montreal is not. It's actually Quebec City. I know that, but I didn't say it. And then he also said Vancouver, and I said, oh, that's also a capital, but not the capital of Canada. No, it's not. It's Victoria. And the thing is that I know all the provinces and their capitals and the territories and their capitals, but unless I'm listing it off exactly like that, I can have a momentary brain fart on it. And then there was that little joke question that I had about how many inches are in a centimeter. And of course, their centimeters are smaller, so there's more centimeters in an inch. And I said it was 2.2. That is wrong. And that one I got wrong because of my dyslexia. I get that confused a lot with pounds in kilograms. So there are 2.2 pounds in a kilogram, but it's 2.54 centimeters in an inch. And then Jeff asked me, like why us Canadians actually know measurements in inches a lot of the time. And I said, well, it's because we converted over to it not too long ago. And of course he asked me why, smart ass. And I suspected it was in the 70s, but I didn't want to say it because I wasn't sure, not like my knowledge of capital cities. I was right. Yeah, it was incremental in the 70s that we switched over. 1975 was the first weather forecast in degrees Celsius. And so I was okay with all of that. I could have made the video. I could have just made light of all of that. But then I had also asked him what Canada's other sport is. Because we have hockey, which is our national sport, but there's actually a second one, and it's lacrosse. And I brushed it off and I said it's a Quebec thing. No, it is not. It actually comes from Indigenous peoples here in Canada, and they've been playing it for centuries. And that one kind of ripped me apart. Part of it is I try so hard to be on top of issues when it comes to Indigenous peoples and to learn about it and stuff like that. But here I was, and I got this wrong because all my life I thought it was French. Well, it's probably a French word, but I didn't realize where it came from. And I guess what it comes down to is part of it is that's how poorly educated we are in Canada. Unless you seek out this information, you won't learn it. And part of it is Canada's need to tokenize Indigenous things to make it look like to the outside world that we're inclusive, that, they're part of our culture, when in actuality, the way Canada treats Indigenous peoples is horrendous still. So that alone shouldn't have caused me to have a meltdown. That simple thing. But it did. And that's because of all the other things that were happening at that time. I'm not too sure how many other people, part of it is nobody in the chat caught my mistakes either. Well, I think one person caught the centimeters in an inch thing, but nobody else corrected the capital cities. I pride myself on relaying accurate information. And since the measurement and lacrosse were questions that I knew ahead of time I was going to ask, and I wasn't just caught in the moment with them, I really should have looked them up first, but I didn't because part of me was a little bit confident. And it's not a big deal. Those mistakes were not a big deal. But here's what else was happening at that same time. The news in general, everything with Israel and Gaza. I don't necessarily show it, but I feel these things inside. And it's not masking. It's more like I'm walking on ice, but I can't see past the ice. I can't see through it. So I don't know how thick it is. And so I can seem like I'm fine, and then suddenly I can mention, oh, I saw this video about something that happened in Gaza, and just completely lose my mind. Just completely break down. That's happened before when I was doing a video a long time ago, and one of the first mass graves beside a residential school was found. And I mentioned it. And even though up to that point I hadn't broken down, in that video, I just completely lost it because I feel it. I'm just not necessarily on the surface feeling it, but it's all happening internally. So that was happening. And then earlier that day before I went to check that video to see what I should clip out, I tuned into somebody else's live stream, and a couple of my personal triggers were hit. So if somebody is going to verbally attack me, calling me fat, ugly, stupid, whatever, it doesn't bother me. It really, really does not get under my skin. I don't care because I know what they're doing. I know it's just more of a reflection of them, that they're just trying to hurt me. However, the hosts of the live stream were watching a TikTok video of a woman going on a first date with somebody, and she was shaming him because he was taking her to the Cheesecake Factory. And she thought that this was making her look good. Her value as a woman was above being taken to someplace as low as the Cheesecake Factory. And then I see the comments. in the chat, well, she can afford to skip a few meals. Haha, funny, she doesn't need that dessert anyway. Yeah, she was fat. And that was said by people I know who might even pop into this chat or watch this video later on. And to them, I just want them to know there's no need to apologize to me or anything. It is just to let yourself be aware sometimes of the language you use, because it's when it's from people I know and like and feel like should be above this sort of thing, when they just kind of offhandedly say it in a joke. What that communicates to me is that they're just simply tolerating me. That, because I'm not thin. And in fact, I had to have surgery to be this way. I had to have a gastric bypass because I was severely overweight and I couldn't lose it no matter how hard I tried. And I have a really, really bad history of body image issues relating to my weight. And so when I see comments like that from people that I feel like are accepting people or people who see above that and learn that, it just reinforces my belief that everyone is shallow when it comes to that sort of thing. That all people will ever do is tolerate me and my appearance. And I know that's not necessarily true, but I've been rejected and been hurt because of my size so much in my life, and I haven't had any counterbalances, really. So it hurts when I see that, or when it's in a movie and it's an offhanded joke about, oh, you shouldn't be getting that TV dinner, the TV dinners are only for fat women on the weekend who can't get a date type thing. And I see fat jokes all the time. And it's still very much accepted because people are like, oh, well, it's about that person. And it's like, but it has consequences. And again, if it's from somebody who would normally just say that sort of thing, whatever, I don't care. But when it's from people I like who aren't even directing it at me, that's when it hurts. And then the hosts of the show, they also started mentioning things about her age, that she was trying to hide it and stuff like that. And I'm super sensitive about that as well, because I've hit a certain age in my life where people who present female and women are no longer considered socially valuable. And the reason why it bothers me so much is I've never really had a serious long-term relationship. And the older I get, the less likely it feels like it will ever happen. And aging is something that actually scares me a lot, because I get to a certain point in my life where I'm worried I haven't done anything, like I haven't accomplished anything, and that it's too late for me to do a lot of things. And it's a fear that's constantly there, and I don't know how to escape it necessarily. Like, especially coming into this time of year, end of October, November, it's a really hard time of year for me for a few reasons. Like today, I was very close to my grandmother in the last few years of her life. Today's her birthday. So that reminder is a bit hard at times. And then there's a couple other anniversaries later on in the month, that in November, that are kind of hard on me. Ones that I don't necessarily want to get into right now. So all of that, plus there's some family issues going on that, again, I don't necessarily want to talk about that right now. It's just something that I am very scared for the safety of one of my family members. All of that is going on. And then, God damn it, I didn't know lacrosse was Indigenous. And that is what caused me to break. So it wasn't because I got that one thing wrong. It was because of all of those other things. And then it takes me a while to kind of get over it. Because again, I pride myself in wanting to relay the proper information to appear confident when I'm not, and all that sort of stuff. And so I don't even know if I'm over it yet. I don't know how. Like, if I knew how to recover from these things, it probably wouldn't be so bad. I've tried lots of things because, oh, the other thing that's also kind of leading towards my mood is I haven't been able to go on my walks that I normally go on for about a month and a half. I injured the bottom of my foot, and there's like a tendon in the heel or something that can snap and become inflamed. And so any weight on the foot can cause it to hurt. And it gradually gets better, but then if I break down and go for my walk, it just reflames it for a bit. So I really have to try to hold off going for those walks. But walks for me, the walks that I do, I'm listening to my music, I go into my own little world. It's meditative for me. It helps me to process things. It helps me to think of content for my videos and things to say. And it allows me an escape from this world for just the hour and a half that I'm out there. And I can't seem to get into that brain frame any other way, like not even just dancing in my apartment or anything of that sort. So I haven't even been able to do that. So I'm limited as to ways that I can even unwind. And so all of that led to this. So something I try to do to help kind of process it is I have some friends that I can talk to. And a couple of them pointed out some things that's like, okay, yeah, you got a point. Like my one friend, he told me, because I was so upset, I got these Canadian things wrong. How can I be, like, I'm losing my Canadian credential if I don't know the capital of BC or something like that. And he says, actually, no, it just goes more towards your Canadian credentials that you don't know things about Canada because that's every Canadian. It's like, yeah, you got a point there. Because I'm not too sure there are many Canadians that can name all of the capitals of the provinces and territories. And yet that is something I can, in fact, do when I'm just listing them off. And then another friend, she let me know, it's like, don't think of the lacrosse thing as an Indigenous thing you didn't know. It's sports. Like you know anything about sports. And again, it's kind of like, yeah, you got a point. I used to play basketball when I was a teenager, but other than that, sports are not my thing. I don't watch it. I don't know much about it. It'd be like if me and Emma were to have a conversation and she's talking about sports and I'm talking about Star Trek, it'd be like, that's pretty much the level of like, we can't communicate at that point then because we don't know anything of the other subject. Bad Lefty is asking where Canada is. You just head north and turn left and eventually you'll find it. So, yeah. That little meltdown that I have, and it's not even a severe meltdown, because I've had a lot worse meltdowns, but it was enough to kind of destroy my confidence into doing videos, into even coming on camera, because now it's just, I'm so worried about what happens if I get the next thing wrong, because there's also a lot of pressure on people who present female to get everything right, because when we mess up, it's attacked even harsher, whereas if a man does it, it's like, oh, whatever. Plus, I have a history in my life of making a minor little mistake and especially as a kid being yelled at, screamed at, and sometimes hit. I wasn't beaten as a child, but we were hit often enough out of anger that I was constantly afraid of it. And then even teachers would blow up at me over stupid little mistakes because I was the good kid. I was the quiet kid. I was the kid who had all the answers, who knew was correct all the time or something. So if I messed up and said something that I shouldn't have said, their reaction to me was so indignant that I did that they would blow up at me in front of the class sometimes. And so I have that history as well. So that's why I get very nervous about making mistakes. And then it makes me more nervous about just being spontaneous in a conversation, because that's what happened when I was talking to Jeff. I was just being spontaneous. And for some reason in the moment, I couldn't think of the right answers. So that's what happened. So yeah, I just wanted to get personal with everyone and tell them all this, because I'm sure there are times in your life where you see somebody blow up. Like rage instances to me have a lot of this going on. Because if you get cut off in traffic, the rational response to that is not, swerving to hit the guy off the road or something of that sort. It's that there's a lot of stuff going on in the background. And that's just the last little straw that causes a person to snap. Or if you're with family or friends and you say something and they go quiet or they seem to be upset over nothing, it's never over nothing. It's not about the spilt milk.